Welcome, 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 welcome once again, my people. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining for today's session. This is Ashawa by Tayari dot live on the Yoruba channel, and it's always a pleasure to bring these sessions to you week in, week out. Invaluable content regarding heritage and language preservation. All right, I would want to know where you are joining us from, so you can kindly please maybe leave a comment in the comment section. Let's know exactly where you are watching us from, what languages do you speak. Yeah, just I mean, furnish us with that information there in the comment section. So while we're waiting for that to happen, again, thank you so much for joining in for today's session. It's always an amazing time every time that we have these lives, these conversations, bringing us some tips, wisdom, ideas on exactly how we can bridge the language gap that you have, either you as a parent, a diaspora parent, or with respect to your kids. And today I'm going to be treating something very interesting. All the while on the stream, we have always been focusing on the child not knowing the language, the child not knowing the language. But I came across an event in recent times that actually, you know, spoke to the necessity to also start rethinking this entire process, right? Um, and what is that one thing that I came across? So, um, I met this very amazing lady who I will be bringing her into the stream one of these days as well too. Her name is Cheseline. Very amazing. I mean, person. I mean, by the time I bring her to the stream, you're going to have a taste of exactly the flavor of understanding that she has along this line of language and heritage preservation as well and all that. But back to what Sheslin mentioned. So one of the things that Sheslin mentioned was her background, because I think she has an Asian background, but she never got to speak the language, and for some reason where she lives outside of the country as well too, but I don't want to disclose her location because I mean I don't have consent to do that yet. It happened that when growing up with her parents, they did not speak the language. She understood it just a very fraction, and it wasn't until she I mean started seeing the gaps, and then she decided to actually even take it up personally by herself to start helping people bridge this gap in their own life as well too. She started learning the language herself. And she mentioned something very imperative to me. She said that one of the reasons she's also doing this is that she's also preparing herself as a parent for the sake of her child so that they will also be able to learn the language, right? So today I'm going to be focusing on when the parents don't speak the heritage language either. And this is going to be an amazing session today for some of the things that we're going to be looking at. Some of them are no brainers already, but again, like I said, just thinking through Sheslin's experience, um, you know, inspired me to come up with this session to also look at scenarios like this, because there will definitely be parents out there as well who don't also know their native language, and really that's where the gap really exists. It's not the challenge of the child being able to learn it, but they themselves don't even know what accurate knowledge of their own native language feels like. By the way, we did a session recently on exploring and um, taking advantage of the role of the elders in transmitting language to in language transmission. And I think you want to take a look at that session because some tips and bits were shared there that are pretty much amazing. I mean, I think it will really help any diaspora family to close the gap of, um, language gaps that they may have in the family, basically. So, Let's jump to it. So when parents don't speak the heritage language either, right? So we're looking at reclaiming identity, learning together, and rebuilding family roots. For many second generation parents, this will most likely be the case, right? Um, I know that most second to third generation parents are usually themselves third culture kids. So by third culture kids, what do I mean? I mean they didn't live their formative years in the home country or in their native land and all that, or away from their parents' native language. So this is separate from being what's it called? This is separate from um being multicultural, right? So for example, I can be in Nigeria and my mother is Yoruba, but then I did not live in the southwest. I lived maybe in the east, so I can speak Igbo and I can speak Yoruba, for an example. Now that is not a third culture kid, because third culture kids, it really has to do with more of you know, cross cross continent, intercontinental and all that, like, you know, relocation outside the continent basically, or outside your own home country basically. So for most second generation parents, most second generation parents are always third culture kids. And in all fairness to them, most of them don't even know how to speak the language. Because, for example, like Cheslin, as I mentioning to you, I'm really excited about her coming, joining the live. I'm going to bring her on multiple occasions because she has some very rich perspective that I think will benefit yourself and also benefit other people as well too. So, as I was saying, that most third culture parents don't most second generation parents are, third culture kids themselves, and meaning they have a gap in their own life as well too regarding the language. So just to put a few things to perspective, and then we'll continue. So understanding how language loss happens across generations. So the first generation are most likely the grandparents, or those who we call the grandparents. They have strong native fluency, solid unbroken linguistic foundation. And then by the time you're moving to the second generation, because this is generation that most likely like left the family to go and get money, that entire thing. The whole idea basically. So yeah. So there is um there's a bit of a distance between them. Now again, like I said, I'm not speaking when I just only mentioned tangentially that second generation parents, most of them are always also third culture kids, but that is not always the case, because there are also some parents who are not necessarily third culture kids, but also they didn't live a lengthy time enough in the culture to be able to actually assimilate the language itself as well too. So they have assimilation problems. Why previous generation prioritize dominant language for survival, they will focus on, I mean host country language and all of that. And then of course, by the third generation, you don't have the language anymore. So releasing the shame, overcoming the guilt of not being fluent is the required first step before teaching the children. All right. So as a second generation parent, if you do not understand your own native language, overcoming what's it called? Overcoming the guilt of not being fluent is the required first step before teaching your kids. Because I know how that inadequacy in itself can heavily contribute to your own self esteem as well. But it's important to also know this, because I know language is heavily tied to identity, right? It's heavily tied to identity, it's heavily tied to, and a lot of times we don't always want to feel insufficient in any areas of our life, even when we have gaps, right? Even when we are working towards filling gaps, of any knowledge gaps that we may have, that feeling of inadequacy is not always a good thing for it. When I say it's not always, it's not something we like to have, right? So it's important to know that as a parent who doesn't even know your heritage culture yourself, but you are really desiring that your own kids will also know it, you should understand that you are enough. All right, you are still enough. And reimagining cultural ownership without perfect fluency should then be the next thing that is on your mind, right? But the first thing you must know is this, that you are still enough. You can still, number one, learn the language yourself and also bring your own children up to speed in the best way that you can. Truth is that with respect to this heritage and language preservation thing, there is never a time that is called too late. It doesn't really exist, although it's beneficial at certain ages and a specific time, but there is never a time that is too late. You can always reinvent yourself. You can always go that extra mile. And funny enough, some of the things that I'm going to be talking to you about does not even really require like that much like extra effort in that sense, right? It just really requires that intentionalness. I think that's really the major ingredient with respect to some of the things that I'll be sharing with you today. So you must understand the fact that fluency is not what makes your worth. And don't think that you have lost your language. Like I said, it's not your fault that you don't know the language. I want to believe there must have been some circumstantial things that happened that must have caused all of this to happen, but it's never too late. It's just important that when you are choosing the success criteria for yourself, don't benchmark against fluency. All right. That's not the goal. As long as you can own the culture in some way, right? Because there are other ways in which you can still own the culture without necessarily have tonal fluency and some of those other native fluency as well, too, right? It's important. You should know that you are still enough. Don't allow yourself, don't benchmark against fluency when trying to close this gap. So understand the fact that this is how you should see it. Make effort and connection. Your effort should be with respect to connection. Fluency isn't the only metric for cultural connection. All right. Have this understanding. I'm actively reclaiming it. So shift from passive loss to active ownership. Right? Shift from, don't stay in that environment. Oh, it's lost. Have that understanding. Again, many of the things I'm saying here today really shows the experience of Sheslin. And I just keep mentioning her name over this trip because I'm excited about what she has, done for herself with respect to this. All right. So, but you must understand, basically, back to what I'm saying, that fluency is not the only thing you want to benchmark with. There are other things which you can actively use and will get you to that point. So, moving forward, how do you now, as a second generation parent who is not also fluent in your language, how can you become that rebuilder? I've said that first of all, that you must make sure that you don't accommodate any sense of insufficiency in yourself. All right. So normalize imperfection. Show your children it is safe to struggle with pronunciation, right? Because that's the same experience you're going through yourself as well, right? So let them know that it's okay. It's not a problem, right? It's not a problem. Let them feel safe, right? There was a particular stream that you know we did on why your children cannot speak Yoruba, right? And I mentioned some things there as well too that had to do with what she needs to do, what he or she needs to do, what he or she as a parent right now needs to do to ensure that your kids also stay secure. And the important thing that we mentioned there was to remove the shame factor, right? Remove the shame factor. I think there is nothing that we are trying to attain that we will not all feel incompetent at first, right? There's that uh, uh um unconscious, let's say conscious incompetence. Is it conscious or unconscious incompetence now? Yeah, conscious, because we're conscious of it. We know, I'm not doing well with this, right? So there's that conscious incompetence. Every single one of us, we have to nurse that thing for a lengthy period. Of course, while you are doing the work to still close the gap, but you will not start feeling for a very long time. So taking the first step as second generational parent just requires that you normalize imperfections. Normalize it. Don't feel don't feel yourself with the pressure of wanting to be perfect from day one, right? Don't do that to yourself. So it's important both for yourself and for the kid that at home you create an environment for optimizing for you create a home environment optimized for language exploration. All right, you allow yourself to learn. It's remember that you are rebuilding something, so uh, it will come with its own ambiguities. You're not even sure, you know. Some things will not line out almost immediately. Tonal imbalances, um getting, for example, with Yoruba, trying to get familiar with the army, getting familiar with words that have one spelling but then multiple usage, not just like in English where a word may have like two or three contexts. You can have a word in Yoruba, for an example, that has like six usage, six, yeah, same spelling. Of course, what would then differ now is now the sounds, because the Yoruba is basically known for the sound, the do re mi sound, basically, right? So, for example, a word like Ibadan is do, right? So things like that, you will need to get familiar with all of those things. So you must understand the fact that there's still quite a number of things to catch up with, but recognize that you are a bridge builder. And I think this for me is the climax of the entire thing, because anything that will help you to really connect with your kid, if it is to come to that point where you feel like a beginner, like your child all over again, it's always worth it. Why? There's this connection benefit that it comes with. The child also feels safe, right? um you don't look like an examiner. You can both laugh at yourselves, you can connect. Again, at the end of the day, don't put yourself in that I'm the older one, I should have mastered it. So that, no, don't do that. There are certain places, of course, for the sake of our kids, we should have mastery in certain things. But you see, on this matter of language, it's not a do or die affair. Remember, you are rebuilding, you are deliberately reclaiming the culture now, right? And I've said it before, because of course, um when learning any language, even for me as a programmer, right, fluency is something that you can you can you can spend your time, trying to master, and then losing grip of the many other areas, that because the issue the way fluency actually works is like when you're learning the piano. The first thing the first thing when learning the piano is not speed, right? Every piano teacher will tell you that it's not speed. Just be able to do what you can do very well at a very slow pace. As you continue to repeat it, that speed component will begin to set in. It happens every single time. That's the same way fluency works. It's not an overtime thing, right? Of course, using it in the correct setting, in the correct system, you then begin. Maybe if you use a word like koribe, you wanted to say koribe, you now say koribe, right? You will hear it uh, um at some point. One day you will hear it, and then you will know, oh, okay, that's what I've been trying to say, but I've been pronouncing it in a different way. That then becomes an addition to your knowledge, right? So the way fluency will work is it's a matter of usage. If you use the language over and over and over and again, what will happen at some point? Someone will hear you, and then help you gain perspective on exactly how it should be said. So, like I said, don't put yourself under the pressure of I have to be the master, so that the child. No, don't do all of that. You can say that's why I've cancelled out that in the pyramid. So understand that you want to turn this all language acquisition things not become like a family journey, right? Something that has not become a common ground for you and your child to actually even learn together. All right. The good thing about it is that it helps you to show your kids vulnerability, that adults also make mistakes too. I mean, it's the benefit of this learning side by side with your child. If you're a second generation parent who does not know the language, cannot be overstated, because I believe strongly that every opportunity to do things together as a family is a benefit of connection, and connection is the basis for family. And even for us at Tayari, one of the things that we project when we encourage families to have help their children to learn the language and all that is that connection component, because we know how imperative connection is for family, right? So understand the fact that learning side by side with your child, it brings it introduces that level playing ground. Your child sees, oh wow, I mean, being an adult does not mean being perfect. It's not simultaneous to being perfect. It means you can have vulnerabilities. There are things you can also be a beginner at all over again. So you show your kids that adults can make mistakes. And then again, like I think I mentioned, is that equal footing. Like you remove that student teacher dynamics from the entire thing, and that would definitely reduce learning friction. The child can feel like, oh, myself and mommy, or myself and daddy, or every single one in the family. Let's assume that it's an entire family thing, even with the dad, the mom. Every single one have that ground zero level playing ground where we can all, make our mistakes, and then we can learn side by side. So I was saying earlier before now that some of the things that I'll be sharing with us does not even require that extra effort. Like I'm not even asking you to do 5 hours in the morning and all of that. No, right? Because on the matter of language, use is really how it sticks. Use. Intensity is great. All right. Of course, if you have all the liberty, if you have all the time, you can employ some intensity. Intensity is honestly great, but it is consistency that really, really matters. And where we really see the result is in consistency, not necessarily in how intense. So it's important that you take small steps because they have big impact. All right. Embedding heritage words into your daily house routine. So this is really where the work comes in, where we now begin to do some replacement. You then start small and be replacing some certain words with the local language. And this is for everybody, right? Everybody. So you just maybe the regular greetings in the morning, everyone in the family will be deliberate to greet everyone in the Yoruba language, for an example. If it yours is Swahili. So things like greetings, things like gestures like thank you, please, um um I'm sorry, exactly. So you can replace those words just bit by bit with the local language, and then you begin to see that that's how it just happens bit by bit. So morning, swap your basic greetings, um you know with the language, and then you know turn your living space into an interactive classroom with physical tags. This actually works this actually works I was saying in one of the streams that this issue of flashcards is really underrated. And I don't know the reason, but I understand that maybe because most families are always too busy to really drill down that line of creating flashcards and all that. But again, like I said, if you're really going to, you know, get this thing down, you have to really be intentional and deliberate about it. So the easiest ways you can have frames that some of the words are in Yoruba. I remember my parents had something like that in the house when where I grew up, right? So we had frames where some of the things that were of course the interpretation would be there, right? So that we know exactly what it means, but have frames that have those things. I know a particular person who, when they were trying to learn, this was actually French specifically, when she was trying to learn French, she deliberately turned her phone, her phone's language from English to French. And I think it's still the same thing till now. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh wow, this is so deliberate. So deliberate. So deliberate. She did French in school, though in all honesty. But in the bits to really mastering the language, she forced herself, her phone, she switched the language to, you know, of course, I don't know if iPhones allow you to switch your phone to Yoruba, but maybe we will get to that point one of these days, right? Where your your phone navigation hints will be in your local language. You know, the voiceover can also be in your local language. The Androids and the whatever, I mean, operating system you're using, right, can also employ the local language. I know that there are specific religious writings that prioritize the local languages, right? So, but that's on another side. But I said that to strengthen the fact that you can have, you can have physical tags in the entire household that have some of these local words, all right? Maybe things that make, but in short, I think the best way you can even do that is either you use what's it called, proverbs. Proverbs would really help. Have good proverbs, of course, not proverbs that are not relevant anymore. We have a series here on, Yoruba proverbs. You want to check this out. It's a 5-part series, really amazing. You would learn a lot from that series. So long and short is, have physical tags in the house, things that can put the language in the eye, and of course in consciousness. And then by evening, have bedtime routines. Again, remember, if you these things, when you want to do them, don't leave them, you can't leave them to chance. Think of it with respect to having a window, right? Like, within the next 5 to 8 months, this is the new habit we want to have in the house that will aid us to start learning and speaking the language fluently, right? Does that make sense to you? That's exactly how you will go about it. So, bedtime routine, right? Swap good night, exactly like we said. Swap good night to, or good night phrases to close the day with your heritage language. That's really how we start. Start all of those greetings. Most things that you will most likely be repeating every day. For example, you will repeat stuff like good morning, thank you, sorry, good night, good afternoon. So you can start replacing those ones with the heritage language. Don't try to go big, and I mean, you want to try to construct a very hefty statement and all that. Again, of course, like I said, I don't have a problem with intensity. Intensity is great. The only challenge that I have with intensity is that when the mind feels that, oh, I've learned so much, now I can take a break. That's the problem that I really have with intensity for learning anything at any level, right? There's always this feeling of I've earned the right to rest now when you have done something intensely, and that is not really really helpful. So you want to go that direction of just doing, just what's it called now? Just taking it in bits and episodes. So like I said, target your basic greetings, your night greetings, all of those ones, and just swap those words. And then you can, and again, at the end of the day, it doesn't require any extra time. You just look into your existing daily cycles and just switch the vocabularies. Basically, that's it. By that, you find it that it automatically just integrates into your life as you go. And of course, you need media as your assistant, right? You need to use media. Use a lot of media, songs, movies, right? Use them a lot. They would really help. They would really help. Or the other part you can do is you can get movies, maybe they are English. I don't know if it's possible now, but I think this is something that we should definitely be looking forward to as technology evolves. Um, that you know, auto subtitles for movies would be in your local language. But then, I mean, that's another thing on another side. But yeah, use media a lot. Use songs, and this is one of the things that we do at Tayari Life. For example, when you're learning colors, we have songs on colors, we have songs regarding the rainbow and all of those things basically, right? So use songs, passive listening and active listening. So I mean shared ear training, use songs, use cartoons, stories to passively tune the family's ear to the cadence of the heritage language. And then the vocabulary fault, gamify family achievements, celebrate everyone's single new word together. This requires a measure of being deliberate. If you're not deliberate with it, you are not going to see the result that you desire. And like I said, the advantage of this, the main advantage of some of these things that I mentioned is it doesn't really require any sitting down to learn. Just incorporate it into the regular habits that you have already as a family. All right. And just swap, just do the swapping over and over and again. So, and then this is the last part, right? You are going to be using media as your co pilots in the house. You are going to be doing the swapping of the vocabulary. Now, for heavy lifting, learning bigger phrases, bigger words. That's even one of the reasons why Tayari.Live Yoruba channel has been created, right? So for heavy liftings like that, outsource it to a platform like Tayari.Live. So here, you can scan the QR code up here and it will take you directly to the Tayari.Live um what's it called website. Have a look at exactly how we handle our own gamified experience, and you know you can experience some measure of fluency based on the tools that we have, the videos, the songs, the games. And we have an AI grammar on the platform as well too, interactive AI grammar where you speak, you get feedback on your choice of words, if it was well spoken and all of that. Very amazing experience. So leave all the heavy lifting to platforms like Tayari.Live, particularly for the local language. All right. So that being said, you're already playing your own role by replacing some of this not minor, your greetings, vocabularies at home. So Tyree.live just comes to do that heavy complementing for you. And I suggest that you scan the QR code up there so you can go straight directly to Tyree.live's app. All right. So we're wrapping this up almost already now. So again, you heard me say this before. Um, Consistency over intensity. Or rather, you are doing it in bits every single day so that it creates a neural pathway in your head than intensely doing it. I told you that the major challenge of intensity is that it then gives you this false sense of, I've done something intensely, I need to rest, I need to take a break. You see, that break is not good for the brain, it's not good for the mind. You want to repeat it enough to the point that your mind, your brain creates a neural pathway for it. 'Cause that's really the way real learning works, right? That, except in a scenario where you want to incorporate the intensity with consistency. Of course, that one actually works way faster, right? But don't substitute consistency for intensity. All right. So you are reframing your role when you're using the tech platforms. Um, what's it called? Traditional teacher demands for perfect accents, focuses intense 1 hour study and all that. It definitely feels stress. Sometimes even thinking that, oh, I have a tutorial in 3 weeks, I have a tutorial in 2 days. Those things can be mentally, you know. But for modern study tools like Tari.live, I mean, it's digital native tools and then teaching mechanics. It just focuses on 15 minutes, you know, interactive app habits every single day, including Saturday and Sundays, right? So prioritize what's it called? Prioritize consistency over intensity. One thing I've come to learn in the recent times that we're living in is, if you're really going to, because when you're learning things like this, there's a tendency to flap when you don't feel like you're accountable to anyone. All right. When you don't feel like you're accountable to anyone, when you don't feel like someone is expecting you to make progress based on what you have said that you're learning, that will definitely cause you to, you know, to relax and all that. You must understand that you are not alone. There are many second generation parents who don't know how to speak their native language, their heritage languages around the world. You'll be surprised that there are even existing communities like that. So I want to encourage you that one of the things you need to do is you need to also find your community, connect with other families in the exact same boat. That removes the whole, there's just something about knowing that what I'm going through and what I'm working towards, somebody is doing. It's very encouraging. Even in the world of learning, peer learning is always, always encouraged because it always gets you to the goal faster. You can always share energy when the other person feels like they want to give up. You can always share energy. And so find your cohort, find community of peers to, giving kids a global community of peers learning their language normalizes the experience. There's really nothing that beats community learning. It's it's very helpful. It's also one of the things that we make provisions for on the Tayari.Life platform. We have a community where parents post their progresses, some of the things that they are going through, what their journey has been like, and all that. So you just know that you are not on your own. All right. How how people really learn fast and learn well is that community thing. It's a blessing, right? And you want to have that. Like I said, if you make an attempt to try and learn in isolation, you will most likely not complete every single thing that you need to do. But if you take advantage of community, right? Even on Twitter, for an example, I mean, you can post, "Oh, I'm learning so on Twitter. I'm learning today. I learned this word." Just post it on Twitter. Don't worry. The good thing about you're making it public, what it does for you is that it forces you to be accountable. Of course, now that it's not just you, it's not you and your kid. It forces you to be accountable. And then you go, so myself and my kid, we're learning Yoruba, we're learning this and all that. So it forces some measure of accountability on you, right? So don't downplay the place of community. It plays a huge role in getting you to this goal. I've said it to you before. There is no, there's nothing like it's too late. It's never late to reconnect. You don't have to know everything to start something meaningful. It's never late. So hop up to Tayari.Live, check up everything that we are doing. This is what the business is really all about, helping you to reclaim your heritage language. So understand that you are not failing your heritage, you are that bridge that needs to bring it back. So just to recap some of the things that I had said earlier, um, we have many we have quite a number of second generation parents who don't know the language. So you are not alone, right? So the first thing is important, it's important to overcome the guilt of not being fluent. um Overcome that, and don't think that that is the first step to actually helping your own child, right? The other thing that you must understand is when you are benchmarking against when you're benchmarking as a means to measure how well you are learning, do not use fluency as the basis for benchmarking. That's not the only metrics. All right. Remember that you are trying to do an active claiming. Don't let that one pull you off track. Again, like I said, you if you keep using the language over and over and again, you will get to a point where some of those imperfections will begin to straighten out like that. So remember that you are also becoming a rebuilder. So imperfection, please normalize it. And one of the things that I also mentioned that this will do for you as a parent who doesn't know it when you're learning with your kids side by side is that it brings that level playing ground, right? It takes away that whole pressure of I'm the teacher, I'm the boss, and then I have to be very good at this to be able to teach to be able to teach my child. So when you're learning together, you actually there's also the benefit of helping your child know that adults can make mistakes, and being an adult does not equate being perfect. All right, there's always room for being a beginner at things over and over and again. So remember, small step, just replace some of the regular routine words that you'll be using in the family, replace those words with the heritage language words, and then you'll begin to see changes. don't also forget to use media as a co-pilot, as an assistant to aid what you're doing, music, songs, even games and flashcards and all of those things. All right. So try and get, because in all honesty, one of the cheapest ways, just that I have a challenge with some of the movies, particularly the moral content of some of the movies. But the easiest way really to really learn a language is entertainment. That's proven to always work. Personally, for me, one of the ways that I got my English better was by watching a lot of American movies with subtitles. That was really how. Thank God for dictionaries. Thank God for the English I learned at school. But there's something about learning it in an environment that you consider as this is an entertainment zone, right? It just it disarms you of any rigidness per se. So use media. We have those things already at Tayari.Live as well too. So uh I mean, you are covered already. All right, just need to get in and then start getting um use of those things. So let Tayari.Live do the heavy outsourcing for you. I've said this as well too. And then um remember, consistency over intensity. I would rather you're doing into small bits and small fractions every day than in one day at a huge stretch. That's not as helpful. All right. So intense consistency rather over intensity, and recognize that you're not alone. Take advantage of community. This is really the best way to always complete anything. The moment you don't feel any sense of accountability towards something you're trying to reach for, you are most likely not going to get there. So, what community offers you is that free accountability. And of course, if you don't get any community, like I said, feel free to, grow in public. Don't grow in private. So grow in public. Post it out there. Oh, this is day 2 of learning Yoruba. I've learned this word, learned that word, learned this word. Don't worry about likes and posts and all those things. Just learn in public. I think that's the most imperative thing. And I know you will begin to really see heavy change. And then remember, it's not too late. It does not even exist. You can always reinvent yourself. There's room for that. You can reclaim your heritage back. So basically, that's it. Rich information, right? Rich information. So let me know what you think in the comment section about this, particularly if you're a second generation parent who does not really know the language very well. Let me know what you think about everything that has been shared here today. If it speaks to you, if you've practiced them before, if you're planning on practicing them, and what are the results that you have seen, share them with me. Come on, let's hear from you. Um, you know, put them in the comment section. And again, please don't forget to like, and comment and subscribe to the channel. It's always a joy to know exactly what you think. We're doing all this because of you out there, and don't be in limbo, don't be in isolation. Let us know that what we are doing is reaching you and is really affecting and helping you to get and reclaim your language back. So that will be it for today. My name is Busola. I'm your host on Ashawa by Tayari.Live. And this brings us to the end of, today's session and for this week. I'll definitely be bringing some amazing stuff to you next week, every single day. So be on the lookout. Again, like I said, subscribe, like, give us a comment. This is the little you can do just to help us know that we are truly helping you. All right. So thank you so much. It's been an honor hosting you again in today's session. Like I said, scan the link, scan the code, the QR code up there. It will take you directly to the Tayari.Live page, the website, and then you can have a look at exactly the experience that we have provided for you to reclaim your heritage language. Thank you so much. It's always a joy bringing this to you. My name is Busola, and I would see you